Rob Tabbert here for Boxing News. It's the morning after the night before in Guadalajara. Eddie, some night last night.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's like a movie, wasn't it? The ring walk and the atmosphere. We was just saying off camera, you know, sort of an hour to go. It was still like 35,000 in there, but I was thinking, where is everybody? And then all of a sudden, everyone just came out in their floods, completely full up. Good fight. John did himself proud. Solid win for Saul. You know, some interesting fights on the undercard as well. But a fight that I love fights like that for boxing because people tune in and go, "Wow, that's boxing, is it?" You know, you see it sometimes the UFC and the WWE, but that's great for boxing for people to see how big our sport can be.
We're going to try and kind of whiz through it. I do appreciate your time. I know we kind of got to shoot off today. John Ryder's performance, obviously, you know, he comes out of it with a lot of credit. Was the fight kind of, with all due respect to John, the best version of what it could have been, really?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse in that, obviously, he broke his nose in the second round. The blood was horrendous. And when he got knocked down in the fifth, I was happy for the fight to be over at that stage. At that stage, it would have been a drubbing. But I was, you know, I thought with the injury, I didn't want to see too much more of this. And he just started to not get comfortable in the fight, but sort of fight without thinking and just flowing with it. Trading with Saul at mid-range, you know, pushing him back in the clinch. Referee was quite quick to break those clinches last night, but, you know, John always good at it with the inside work. And started enjoying himself a bit more. And I think when you go in, you imagine how difficult it must be. You go into that ring and you're looking around and you're watching him doing his 8-minute ring walk thinking, you know, and all of a sudden the bell goes and you're going, oh my God, I'm actually in a ring here with Canelo Alvarez. No matter how much experience you've got, I kind of feel like that's how the fight started. And then when John started to sort of not lose respect for Canelo, but just realise, actually, I could mix it up here. Thought he did really well. Thought he won rounds in the back half of the fight, 2 or 3 rounds. And yeah, I thought he, you know, we're a funny breed, aren't we? We actually quite like it when our guys don't quite get the victory, but we love it when they show heart, and we love it when they don't quit, and we love it when they throw the kitchen sink. And he never stopped trying in the fight, never trying to survive, always trying in the fight to trade, to land shots, to come forward. And his stock just went through the roof last night. Here, he's been mobbed here, but particularly back home, and he deserves it.
For Canelo, I mean, I think the general consensus is that he potentially is not the force that he once was. What are your comments on that?
He's getting on a bit. You know, he's done a lot of rounds. He's had a lot of fights. I mean, I thought it was a good performance, and it's difficult against John because he's very tough, always comes forward, very strong, granite chin. And Sal's coming off the back of the operation. I mean, one of his hands was like a balloon in the changing room. The other one, the operated hand, was okay. I mean, I don't know. I think you're going to have to see. I think the next fight's going to tell us a lot more. I think he's still I mean, you speak to John if he's still a force. I think the answer is yeah, absolutely. But I think fighters at that level, we always wonder, you know, I mean, in 2 weeks' time, we've got Katie Taylor coming up. Before the Serrano fight, people were saying Katie Taylor was finished. You know, 2 mandatory defences. All of a sudden comes out probably one of her best, you know, gutsiest performances against Amanda Serrano. Those are the fights where you really find out. And those are the fights that make those guys raise their performance. Similar to AJ against Franklin. Must win this fight, you know, almost. Don't take any chances. Let's get through it. Now, boom, you're fighting Deontay Wilder. Right. They're big game fighters. You know, and Sal was one of those.
Where next for Canelo? Obviously, the Dimitri Bivol fight, he kind of spoke about it last night. But he did sort of preface it with, if we can't make that, we can do something else. Is that the most likely option?
I think that's based on Bivol's comments, really, you know, which is, I don't want the fight at 175. I want it at 168. Sal's made it clear to me, I don't want the fight on any other terms other than exactly the same as last time. Because that's where I lost, and I want to put that right. And if we can't make the fight with Dimitri, then he'll defend in August against someone else, and we'll look at other opponents. You know, whether that brings in a David Benavidez, you know, whether all of a sudden Edgar Berlanga looks great against Keeler and maybe has another win. I don't know. That fight's got to be built a little bit. But, you know, when I left the changing room last night, I said to him and Eddie Reynoso, just to confirm, you want me to go full speed with Dimitri Bivol at £175? Yes. September. So that's my instructions and my job to try and get that made.
And for John Ryder, I know I've heard Gennady Golovkin. I don't know, is Gennady Golovkin retired? He's kind of vacate?
He's not. I mean, that was the first thing he said in the change room. I was like, wow, what about a little rest first? But he's going to get a lot of offers to fight in America because it's the yardstick, isn't it? And then I love the Gennady Golovkin fight back in the UK, but he'll definitely fight again for sure.
Before we move on to some of your signings last night, I'm very keen to talk to you about. One fight that I want to talk to you about is Valenzuela-Spark and the confusion around the judging, the two neutral, the judging that was supposed to be there, the judging panel, wasn't what we saw on the night. We saw two local judges from Guadalajara, Jalisco. It's a WBA sanctioned event. I mean, is there going to...
It wasn't WBA sanctioned.
It was for a WBA title?
No title on the line, no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not in that fight. But what happened was, the fight was going to be for the WBA title. It wasn't. That was decided a week or so ago. It was a 10-round international contest. We agreed with the local commission that the judges would be neutral and they would be the same judges used from the main event. This was all agreed, all approved at the weigh-in, everything. It's not something that when the judges sit down at that point, you actually check and look at their faces and say, is it the same one we've got on the paper here? When the scorecards got read out, they were local officials. Now, in a 10-round contest not sanctioned by a governing body, that is the norm. But it was pre-agreed with the commission that they would be international judges. So I wasn't particularly happy with that. The fact was, it was a close fight. I had Steve winning by 1 or 2 rounds. And, I spoke to Brendan and the team, and they felt that when the final bell went, they felt they won the fight, but we're in Guadalajara. We're fighting a guy from Guadalajara. But I was disappointed that those judges that were agreed were not in place. I don't think necessarily it was done deliberately, because as standard procedure for a fight like that, they would be local officials. But, Stevie's a great fighter, going to be back, and we're going to get him another big opportunity.
See, a rematch? It was a brilliant fight.
Great fight. I mean, quite possibly. I mean, I'm not sure Valenzuela will be rushing to that. But honestly, Stevie Spark will fight anyone. And he's been in so many great fights, and he'll headline for us in Australia now, I think.
Last quick couple from me. The signing of Regis Prograis, of course, WBC 140-pound champion. Big coup in a division where it's good now, but where it could be in potentially 12, 18 months' time with the lightweights coming up. Very exciting times at super lightweight.
Yeah, it's really important for us to get our foot in divisions that are the glamour divisions in boxing. We kind of didn't miss the boat at welterweight, but it's not the glamour division it was. But 4, 5, 6 years ago, we had Kell Brook, and unfortunately didn't capitalise on his win over Sean Porter. But now at 135 and 140, it's really important for us to get in there with guys who can mix it with the elite. And with Regis, I honestly believe, and I saw Josh Taylor replied to my message because I said number 1. He said number 2. On it, I really rate Josh Taylor, but I think right now with the momentum, I believe Regis Prograis would beat Josh Taylor. I promoted their first fight. It was like that, and it was brilliant, and they're both brilliant fighters. But I believe we have the best 140-pounder in the world. And when you look at the fighters coming up, Ryan Garcia, Tank, Shakur, Devin Haney, all these guys, Teofimo, Josh Taylor, it's a massive division, and Regis is ready for all those guys. So he had other offers, he had bigger offers, and that was one of the things that was most pleasing to me. He likes us, he likes what we do, he wanted to be part of that, and he wanted momentum, and he wanted activity. And when we signed him, we said, bang, 7 weeks' time, June 17th, Liam Paro, first defence, and not just that, at home in New Orleans. And I think the kid's a star.
You mentioned all those names there at 140. They're not with Matchroom. They're across the other side of the street, so to speak. Difficult to get those fights
Devin Haney's a free agent after the Lomachenko fight, so we'll see. Ryan Garcia's with the Zone. And then from there, you've got our guys. You've got Paro, you've got Sparks, you've got Valenzuela, you've got Jack Catterall. So, we've got so many Richards and Hitchens, Montana Love. So we've got loads of guys. But that's fine for this year, like the next 2 fights, those names. But we do need to land the big fights, and that'll be on us to do it. And if we can't, we'll probably lose him. So the pressure's on, and we'll deliver.
Last but by no means least, the signing of Andy Cruz, which I think we said off camera, I think he's gone universally, brilliantly received. One of the greatest amateur boxers, probably of all time, but certainly the man of the moment, so to speak. 3-time world amateur gold medalist, Olympic champion. Good signing, Ed.
Massive. And I have to, give credit to Frank Smith, because he told me a couple of months ago, we're talking to Andy Cruz. I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And then as the time's gone on, we've agreed terms with Andy Cruz, yeah, whatever. Yeah, he's got his visa now. Right, okay. He's signed. Right. He's coming tomorrow. I'm like, I was like a fanboy, because I watched this kid in Tokyo. I see him beat Luke McCormack. I saw him beat Keyshawn Davis easily. And I was just like, this is just going to be one of those great Cubans that never turns pro and could easily take over the world in his division, but we'll never get a chance. And unbelievably, we've got a chance, and we've got a chance. He's with us. And when he arrived last night, I was like a fanboy. You know, I said to him, I said, honestly, I would put you in any fight at 135 pounds and believe we can win that fight. And it's good, you know, you always hear me ranting and raving about Shakur. He's of that level now. And he's going to start at 10 rounds in July. You know, the way that's been received by the boxing community, he's like a god. We need to push that and make the casual audience as well realise that this kid is unbelievable. Unbelievable fighter. Like, and for me, could be our biggest signing ever.
You mentioned there, final one for me, you mentioned there about kind of how good of a fighter he is. We've seen in the past, Rigondo and other Cuban fighters where not always been able to get those big fights, have been avoided like the plague. You had Daniil Yulusinov, who was an outstanding amateur, wasn't quite able to make that push into the pro ranks. Is this kind of one of the difficult parts of your job now, and something that's, you know, it's not about what he does in the ring, so to speak, it's about, as you mentioned there, getting the wider audience to realise how good he is.
Yeah, and that's me with a megaphone going around getting people to watch. We've got the boxing community wrapped up with this kid. They're ready to watch this journey. We have to build the profile, because if you don't build the profile, you won't be able to get in the fights, because they become, and people start using the excuse, oh, why would I fight him? No one knows who he is. You know, that kind of stuff. That's the normal excuse when you don't want to fight someone. And Rigondo was exactly that guy. You know, so good, but no one wanted to fight Rigondo. You have to make these fighters big enough, make the payday big enough. And I think with Andy Cruz, I've seen it with the momentum from yesterday. I think we'll be just fine.
When will he box for a world title, do you think?
Maybe next year. You know, he's going to box in July. I think he'll box 2 or 3 times this year. 4, 5, 6 fights max before he fights for a world title. He can beat those guys now. Honestly, like, I will put him in with Tank now. And I rate these guys unbelievably. But it's so good to have a talent like that you know can mix it with them. And, you know, that it's going to be a special journey.
Special indeed. Eddie Hearn, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing News. Catch up with you soon.
Thank you.